Hey everybody, welcome to Level Pixel Level, and today I'm just going to show you how to rig a grease pencil mouth. First of all, just delete all this stuff and go to front view and add a new grease pencil object. Okay, so flip to draw mode and make sure your strength is at 1, and I'm just going to add a circle. If you hold shift down, you get a perfect circle as well. When you see these dots, just hit enter, and I'm going to go to edit mode now. And I'm going to select everything. I just hit A to do that, and now I can just move this around. But I'm going to do Shift S, selection to cursor, keep offset. Here's what's a little weird with circles in Grease Pencil, is it thinks that this is the origin, so it won't actually put it at the perfect center. I'll show you a trick for that. I'm going to do Shift S, cursor to selected. What that does is it puts the cursor right at the center of this circle. Now if I go to Object Mode, and go to Object, Set Origin to 3D cursor, it'll put the origin of my object right at the middle of that circle. Now I can just zero this out, and my circle is exactly at the origin of my space. There's probably another way to do this. This is just how I do it. Okay, let's do a couple more things. Let's just fix the colors here. So I'm going to add a new material, and I'm just going to add a fill color of white for now. So that's looking good like that. The last thing I want to do is just flatten this line. So I just want to make a default flat mouth shape. I like to start from a closed mouth shape for this. If it was an eye, I'd like to keep it open. These are the corners of my mouth right here. Right here and here, so I want those to remain static. I'm just going to grab everything at the top, and I'm going to do scale Z0. What that does is just makes it a perfectly flat line. And I'm just going to lift it up a little bit to about here, just above that red axis line. I'll do the same on the bottom. I'll select all the bottom vertices, and I'm going to do scale Z0. And that just zeroes out that line. I'll just bring this down a little bit, just to about here. That's looking good over here. I don't mind that shape right there. We can fix that later. It's a little wonky over here. I just want to move this over just a little bit just to mirror that up. Okay, that is our base mouth. Later on, we're going to add teeth and a tongue, but for now, this will work great. So I'm going to add the deform bones now. We're actually going to connect them to this rig. I essentially want to control here, maybe one here, one here, one here, and one here. That'll give me a good range and allow me to make this nice S curve if I want to, or a nice C curve. I'll want the same on the other side. And obviously the same at the bottom as well. Then we're going to have master controls here, here, and here to help us get some more interesting shapes. I'm going to be building those with constraints, but we're going to get into that later on. Okay, so I'm going to add the armature. So I'm going to go to add armature, and just make sure this is at origin by zeroing out the location. I'm going to go to edit mode, and I'm just going to move this bone over for now. I'm not really worried where it is. I just want to rename it to deform lip top.left.001. Just going to duplicate this over and name this .right.001. Because these have the same name, the only difference is left and right, I can turn on X mirror, which lets me do this. I'm just going to rotate this by 90 degrees and bring it right to the origin. So I'm going to grab the head of the bone, and on the X value, I'm just going to put it as 0. I can just scale this down too. When you're scaling this, make sure you're on individual origins, so you're scaling from the head of the bone. And I'll just keep scaling down. I'm going to flip on X-ray mode and just grab this down. So I can find that spot on the lip that I built right there. That's looking good like that. Now I can just grab this and hit E to extrude, and hit X to constrain it. So I'll hit E again, I'm just extruding this bone along. So that's what I want for the corner here. And I'll just space these out. There's another way I could have done this with subdivide, but for right now, I'll just do it manually. That's looking good like that. So I'll just grab this one and just duplicate it down. I'm just going to rename these to bottom, lip bottom. I'll just use BOT. I like to keep the name length the same. It just helps if I ever want to write any custom Python code into this, just to have the same length of string for the names. So now I can just extrude this one over as well. And make sure you have snap turned on with vertex. This allows me just to snap to a bone, which is the one up here, just so it's in the exact same place. Good, that's looking great. I'll grab this one now, and I'm just going to duplicate it over. And I'm just going to rename this to Deform Lip Corner. Or just con right now. And I'm just going to rename the right as well. Again, you could use the symmetrize option to do all this, but this is just how I'm sort of doing it right now. I'm just going to fix a couple of things. I'm going to go to pose mode. I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to hit Control R. This lets me set the rotation mode. I'm just going to set it to XYZ Euler. And I'm just going to put these in a bone group right now. So under the armature, I'm going to add a bone group. I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to assign them, change the default color to blue, and I'm just going to rename it Deform. So I'm going to select on the grease pencil object. I'm going to shift click on the armature. I'm going to do Control P, and I'm going to do with empty weights. What that means is it's actually parented the grease pencil under the armature, and under the modifiers, it's added that armature modifier for me with the armature as the object. It's great, everything's set up. Now, if I come to the data of this layer and I come down to vertex groups, it's made all of these vertex groups for me, which is great, it saves me a ton of time. I like to do this before I add any control bones, just because then it won't add any random vertex groups. But you can change this at any time. That's what's great about Blender, is you can just add and subtract vertex groups as you want to. So say you want to add new controls to this or new deform bones, you can. So I'm going to select on the rig. I'm going to go to pose mode and then click on the grease pencil object. Make sure that lock object modes is turned off as well. This will let you click on the grease pencil object while the rig is in pose mode. You can flip to weight paint mode. And now these vertex groups are made, I can quickly paint this. I'm doing a very simple weight paint on this. I'll just go to weight paint mode. I'll make sure I'm selected on Deform Lip Top Left .001. Just a couple things. Put your weight up to 1. Use fall off is fine, strength is fine here at 1. And I'll just paint this part here. I could have done this in edit mode as well too. I just prefer paint weighting because I can kind of see what I'm doing as I go. Just make my brush a little bit bigger. And I'm just basically giving these 100% to each segment of bone here. I could do a fall off between them, but I'm going to be using bendy bones, which is essentially going to give me a fall off anyway. Just keep going along to the 4th bone here. And then to the corner, I'll find it over here. Just paint that 100%. So I'll do the same thing to the right side over here. You kind of have to paint both like this. I don't know if there's a mirror function. If anyone knows the mirror function, actually, if they could let me know, that'd be awesome. There's probably a different way to do this, but that's just sort of the way that I've been doing it for these grease pencil mouths for the last little while. I'll probably just speed this up through here as I weight paint all of these pieces. Okay, so I've weight painted about each segment of vertices 100% to the nearest bone segment. I'm just going to fix a couple things. I noticed that my bones are just a little bit off from where the lip line actually is. So I'm just going to fix that right now. And to fix this, I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to select on the top row of verts right here. I'm just going to do Shift S, cursor to selection. That just puts the cursor right there on that line. Then I'm going to select on the rig. I'm just going to go to edit mode, and I'm not going to be 100% accurate with this. I'm just going to drag it down until it matches that cursor. And I see it's pretty much on that line. I'll just do the same with the bottom right now. Again, since I'm weight painting, you can change these pivots at any time. It's not locked in. It's not like Maya where you can't change the pivots. Because it's a vertex group, it lives on the object, you can change the pivots if you want to. Okay, now I'm just going to test out my weight painting by grabbing some of these bones in pose mode and just moving them around. Again, this is not going to look the nicest right now. I'm just trying to make sure that everything is weight painted nicely. And I'm just rotating these. I'm just trying to make sure I don't have any double transforms or that any of the weights didn't get left behind. I am not worried about shape right now. This is just testing just to make sure everything's good. Okay, that's looking good. I think everything's weight painted fine. I'm going to save a version here if you want to follow along with me. Okay, so let's start adding the controls. I'm just going to zero everything out, and I'm just going to flip it to B-bone instead of octahedral. So under the display method, flip it to B-bone. Now these are just big visually right now, so if I just select all these and do Control-Alt-S, I can scale these down. This is just a visual scale. This is not a deformation scale on the actual rig. With these all selected still, I'm just going to do one last thing. I'm just going to change the bendy bone segments. I'm going to make this 10. That should be enough. Let's talk about some of the issues that are cropping up here though. Actually, if I just make this big again, you see that I have a bit of a twist issue right here. We're going to fix that right now too. If I come to the rig and turn on axes, you'll see that these ones are pointing down and these ones are pointing up on the Z. That's a problem. I'm just going to hide the grease pencil. We can fix that really easily by selecting this and in edit mode, just putting the roll at 0. See how that just fixes that twist? Same with this one. Take this, put this roll at 0. Now these axes are all facing the same way. Same with these ones over here. And turn off axes and go back to pose mode. And again, just scale these down again. It's a common thing you have to fix with bendy bones, but you'll just get used to it as you work with it more. Now with these bendy bones, I'm able to get these really nice curves on this lip, and that's why I did a really static weight paint, just so that I could use the bendy bones to get my nice deformation and my nice S curves and C curves. I don't want to weight paint that. That would take way too long to weight paint. I'd rather just do it with the rig. Okay, we're going to add a fairly simple control structure. We're going to do the top lip first, then the bottom. With the rig selected, I don't even need the grease pencil visible for this. I'm just going to go to edit mode. I'm just going to duplicate this deform bone and just move it up for now. First thing I'm going to do is rename this, and I'm just going to call it control lip top.001, and I'll copy that over to the other side for the right. Now these ones do not need bone segments, so I'm going to put these at 0. I'm going to do a couple more things. Under the deformation, I'm going to turn this off. With these selected as well, I'm also just going to scale them down and scale them up visually just to help as I rig this. Now with snap turned on, I'm just going to hit G and bring this down right back to that location. Now I'm going to hit Shift D and just duplicate this right along this bone chain. And I'm using snap just to snap it to those locations. I'm going to grab this one and bring it down, and I'm just going to rename this to bottom. And I'll copy the name over to the other side and name it right. Again, I'm just going to hit Shift D and duplicate this over. Because I have snap turned on, I can snap it right to the deformed bones. I'm going to add one more in this corner bone right here. I always like to keep my controls and my deformed bones separate. So now you have something like this. I'll just rename this one to corner. I'll just copy that and add it to the other side. This is pretty much ready to go now. I just want to do one more thing. Just to keep this organized, I just want to move all these bones to a different layer. So I'll select them all. And because I'm in edit mode, I can actually move these to this bone layer here, and it'll do the left and the right at the same time. It's just a little bit easier if you're moving around bones. So there's my, I guess, tweaker layer and my deform layer. So I'll flip to pose mode. I'll select all these, and I'm just going to give them a different color. So I'll add a new group here. I'll give them a red color, click assign, and I'll just call this nodes or tweaker. Actually, let's do tweaker. So now what I want is these to actually move the deform bones while they're connected. These are connected bones, and you can't really translate them, but you can translate them if you get constraints. So what I'm going to do is select on this control here, shift click on this deform bone, and I'm going to do Control Shift C to bring up a constraint menu, which lets you add constraints with targets. So I'm going to do a copy transform. Now this deform bone has a copy transforms to this lip control. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want. But what I want it to do is point to this bone. So with this one selected, I'm going to shift click on this, and I'm going to do Control Shift C, and I'm going to do a stretch to. Now when I grab this, I'm translating that bone. It's doing some really wacky things down the chain, but we're going to copy this entire section all the way down. So when I translate this, this moves, and it points at this bone here. Let's move right along. I'm going to select on this one, shift click on the deform bone, do Control Shift C, copy transforms. Click on the next control, shift click on the deform back, do Control Shift C, stretch to. Now, when I move this one, I'm getting this. See, I'm getting a really nice bend on this bone right here. And here I'm bending this one. So I'm just going to keep going along. Click on the control bone, shift click on the deform, Control Shift C, copy transforms, click on the next one, click back on the deform, Control Shift C, stretch to. And I'm just going to keep going along and doing this. And then we'll look at the top of this lip to see what it's going to be doing. So Control Shift C, stretch to. So now I have this. If I move this, I'm just moving that top lip part there. And now I'm getting these really interesting curves. Let's turn back on the grease pencil part so you can see this. So this is the foundation of getting really nice shapes with the grease pencil without doing too much weight painting. You could do this with one bone and weight paint forever, but now I can get a really nice C curve like this. Or maybe like an S curve like this. This is great for getting some interesting shapes. Let's move along though and keep doing some of the other parts. So this one here, I'm going to shift click here. I'm just going to make this a copy transforms. Okay, I'm just going to do the bottom lip and the other side of the top lip with the exact same method. Click on the control, shift click on the deform, Control Shift C, copy transforms, click ahead, shift click back, Control Shift C, stretch to. Very repetitive. So I'll probably just speed up the video here while I go through and do the other pieces. Okay, so I've added all these pieces and now I'm just testing out to make sure my constraints are fine. And everything's looking okay. Oh, something really wacky is going on there that I gotta fix. That's because I just forgot one constraint here. Now I have these really interesting shapes. This is extremely similar to what I've done for the eyebrow rig before. If you do want a video where I go into more detail, check out that one because I do look at it in a bit more detail than I have here. Okay, so some weird things are happening here. I don't really like that shape that that's making. I kind of want that to be a nice curve rather than a sharp shape like that. If I turn on the lip, you can sort of see what's happening. To fix this is a little odd. I'm just going to turn off the control bones right now, and I'm going to flip it to octahedral, and I'll show you what's going on here. B-bones work in a really weird way where this one here will make a really nice curve with these ones here because there's a back and a front. Now you can come to the B-bone settings and add a custom end and start here to help with that curve. Honestly, I find these a little buggy. They've never really worked really that well for me. I'm going to show you a different method for going about this. I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to click on this bone here and duplicate it and move it over to the other side. And I can just snap it there because I have snap turned on. Now I'm going to click on this bone here on the left side and shift click on this one. Here, I'll just turn off the grease pencil and I'm going to do Control P, connected. I'll do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to duplicate this bone over and move it over to here. Select on the one pointing in the same direction and do Control P, connected. Now, one little problem, these all have the constraints on them. So if I go to pose mode, they're going to move. I'll just go back to edit mode and make sure I select all four of those bones. I'll go to pose mode and I'll go pose, constraints, clear pose constraints. Now they're all sitting right there. Let me turn back on my control layer here. Now I'm getting something like this, and that's a bit of a problem too, so I need to fix that. I'm going to fix this in an interesting way. This one back here, I'm going to do a copy location to this bone. So I select on the control, I shift click on this bone, I can do Control Shift C, copy location. Then to this control bone to here, I'm going to do a stretch to. Now if I flip back to B bone, you'll see what this is doing. So I'm getting that nice curve now. And here, I'll actually go back to orthoketer. I just want to fix the viewport on that. I'll make these ones a little bit smaller, just so you can see where they are. So now I'm getting that where it's maintaining that curve right there. It's helping with that nice curved shape. If I didn't have that, I would be getting this sharp shape that I was getting before. That wasn't really nice. So I have to do this across the board. So to this one here, I'm going to do a copy location to here. And to this one here, I'm going to do a stretch to. I'll do the same down here. So I'll click on this control, shift click on this skinny one here. I'll do shift control C, copy location, click on this one here, do shift control C, stretch to. It's a bit of a weird setup. I tend to like just working with constraints at this point to build these. It may seem a little complicated, but it's really easy to set up once you start building them. Now look, when I move these two, I'm getting that really nice smooth edge there. And if I turn back on the grease pencil, you'll see what that's doing. So I get a really nice smooth curve there, and I can get really interesting shapes. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up part one. You could almost animate this and play around with this, but in the next video, we'll add some higher level controls, and we'll add the teeth and the tongue. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.